I woke up in the ICU with a fractured skull. Standing beside my wife was a man I didn't recognize, claiming he saved my life. But just 30 days earlier, I had spotted her car at a hotel where she had no reason to be. Now, this so-called hero knew too much about her. Was it just a coincidence? I stopped believing in coincidences the moment I realized my accident might not have been accidental at all. My name is Daniel Reynolds. I'm 43, and for the last 18 years, I've built one of the most successful medical equipment companies in the Southwest. Reynolds Medical Solutions began in my garage and expanded into a multi-million-dollar business with over 60 employees across 3 states. I was proud of everything I had achieved, proud of the life I provided for my family. My son Mateo, 17, was getting ready for college next year. My daughter Amelia, 13, was the light of my life. And Candace, my wife of 19 years, the woman I had hoped to grow old with. The night of the accident, I was heading home from a supplier meeting in Austin. It was past 9 p.m., and the highway was dark and desolate. I had called Candace earlier to let her know I'd be late, but she barely responded, just a cold, okay, before hanging up. I remember gripping the wheel tightly, telling myself we'd talk when I got home. We needed to talk. Something had been off for months. Suddenly, headlights appeared out of nowhere. 1 second the road was clear, and the next, a black SUV was swerving into my lane. I jerked the wheel to the right, but it was too late. The impact sent my truck spinning, metal screeching as it collided with metal. My head struck something hard, and then, darkness. When I came to, everything around me was white and sterile. Fluorescent lights blinded me. My body felt like it had been crushed. Every breath sent sharp pain through my ribs. A nurse appeared beside me, her face calm but professional. "Mr. Reynolds, you're in the ICU," she said gently. "You were in a serious accident. You've been unconscious for 2 days." 2 days. The words didn't sink in right away. I tried to speak, but my throat was raw. "Your wife has been here," the nurse continued. "She just stepped out with the gentleman who helped at the scene. They should be back soon." A gentleman who helped at the scene. Something about those words made my stomach twist. Before I could figure out why, the door opened. Candace walked in, and I barely recognized her. She was dressed in a sharp black blazer and heels, her hair styled to perfection. She looked more like someone heading to a business meeting than visiting her husband in the ICU. "Dan," she exclaimed, rushing to my side. She grabbed my hand, but the touch felt off. "Thank God you're awake. I've been so worried." Behind her stood a man I had never seen before. Tall, probably in his mid-40s, with a confident posture that radiated authority. He wore an expensive suit and a practiced smile that never reached his eyes. "This is Cameron Blake," Candace introduced him, her voice unnaturally cheerful. "He witnessed the accident and stayed with you until the ambulance arrived. He even rode with you to the hospital." Cameron extended his hand, but quickly realized I couldn't shake it. He let it drop. "Good to see you awake, Dan. That was a nasty crash. You're lucky to be alive." I stared at him, my foggy mind trying to make sense of it all. Something felt off. The way Candace stood a little too close to him. The way she glanced back and forth between us. The way this stranger knew my name as if we were old friends. "Thank you," I managed to croak, studying Cameron's face. He nodded, but his expression was cold, sending an unsettling chill through my entire being. Every fiber of my body screamed danger. Cameron didn't stay long. He made an excuse about a business call and left, but not before giving Candace's shoulder a squeeze that lasted a second too long. I watched him go, then turned my focus to Candace. She was fiddling with her phone, avoiding my gaze. "How long has he been here?" I asked, my voice hoarse. Candace looked up, and for a brief moment, I saw something flash across her face. Fear, maybe, or guilt. "He's been incredibly supportive," she said carefully. "He stayed with you in the ambulance and made sure the doctors had all the information they needed. I don't know what I would have done without him." That wasn't what I had asked, but I let it slide. My head was pounding, and speaking felt like a monumental effort. "Where are the kids?" "Mateo's at school," she replied. "Amelia is with my sister. I didn't want them to see you like this until you were stable." "I want to see them, Candace." The words came out more forcefully this time. She flinched but nodded. "I'll bring them this afternoon, but you need rest. You've been through a lot." After she left, I lay there, staring at the ceiling, something gnawing at me. Beyond the obvious discomfort of Cameron Blake's presence, something didn't sit right. I reached for my phone, wincing as the motion pulled on my ribs. The screen was shattered but still worked. I scrolled through my recent calls and messages, hoping to find something that might explain this feeling. Then I saw it. A message I had started typing the night of the accident but never sent. It was addressed to Candace. "We need to talk about the man I saw you with at the Riverside Hotel." The memory hit me like a freight train. 3 weeks ago, I had driven past the hotel on my way to a late meeting. I saw Candace's silver Mercedes parked in the lot. I called her, asking where she was. She told me she was at Amanda's house for her book club. I almost believed her until I saw a man walking out of the hotel, and then Candace following him. They didn't touch, but there was something in the way they moved together that immediately raised suspicion in me. That man had been Cameron Blake. I had been too consumed with work to confront her properly, so I convinced myself it was probably nothing, that I was just being paranoid. But deep down I knew. I'd always known. The nurse came in to check my vitals, and I forced myself to focus. The man who was here earlier, Cameron Blake. Did he give a statement to the police about the accident? I asked. She seemed confused. "I'm not sure, Mr. Reynolds. You'd have to ask the officer who took the report. But I do know Mr. Blake was very insistent on staying close to your wife. He said she needed support during this difficult time." Of course, he did. When Candace came back that afternoon with Mateo and Amelia, I tried to push my suspicions aside. Mateo looked pale and shaken, the usual teenage bravado gone. Amelia burst into tears the moment she saw me, gingerly climbing onto the bed to hug me despite all the wires and tubes. "Dad," she said, her voice trembling. "We thought." Mateo's voice broke. "They said it was bad." "I'm okay, buddy," I told him, though the words felt hollow. "I'm going to be fine." But as I held my daughter and looked at my son's frightened face, I knew nothing was fine, and things were about to get a lot worse. The doctors kept me for 2 more days. "Standard procedure for head trauma," they said. I used that time to think, to piece together the fragments of memory that kept resurfacing like debris after a shipwreck. The more I remembered, the clearer the picture became, and it wasn't pretty. Candace visited twice a day, always perfectly put together, with that practiced look of concern on her face. But she never stayed long, always with some urgent reason to leave. The kids came every evening, and those were the only moments that felt real. Mateo tried to act tough, but I could see the fear in his eyes. Amelia clung to me as if she feared I would disappear if she let go. On the 3rd day, I finally convinced the doctors to discharge me. My ribs were tightly wrapped, my head still pounding, but I needed out of that sterile place. I needed to be home in my own space, where I could think clearly and figure out my next move. Tyler Harrison showed up to drive me home, my best friend since college. He had moved to Phoenix 15 years ago for work, but we'd stayed in touch. I called him from the hospital, told him I needed someone I could trust. He caught a flight that night. "You look like hell," Tyler said as he helped me into his rental car. "Feel worse," I muttered, gingerly settling into the passenger seat. He didn't start the car immediately, just gripped the steering wheel. "You want to tell me what's really going on, Dan? Because your wife showing up with some random guy at your accident scene doesn't sit right with me." I'd always appreciated Tyler's directness. No sugarcoating, no avoiding uncomfortable truths. "I think Candace is having an affair with him," I said. "Cameron Blake. I saw them together at a hotel 3 weeks ago." Tyler's jaw tightened. "You sure?" "No, but my gut is," I replied. I told him about the text message I had started to write about Cameron's convenient presence at the accident scene. When I woke up in the ICU and realized that my wife's lover might have been responsible for putting me there, I knew I had to do something, but I didn't know what yet. "First thing we do is get proof," Tyler said, starting the car. "You can't go to war on a hunch. We need evidence." The drive home took about 40 minutes. When we pulled into my driveway, I noticed Candace's Mercedes wasn't there. The house felt eerily empty when we walked in, although I saw Amelia's backpack by the stairs and Mateo's basketball shoes kicked off near the door. "Kids at school?" Tyler asked. "Should be," I replied, checking my phone. No messages from Candace about where she was. "Par for the course lately," I muttered. Tyler helped me settle on the couch, then disappeared into the kitchen. He came back with water and painkillers. "You need anything else?" he asked. "Let me know. I'm staying at the Hampton Inn, but I'm just 5 minutes away." "Thanks, man. I really mean it." After he left, I sat alone in the quiet house, letting the reality settle in. My wife had been lying to me. She was possibly conspiring with another man, and I had no idea what their plan was. My business, my assets, my kids, everything I'd worked for over the last 2 decades, was potentially at risk. The old Dan would have confronted her directly, demanded answers, made a scene. But I wasn't that man anymore. The crash had changed something in me. It made me colder, more calculating. If Candace wanted to play games, then I'd play, but I play to win. Candace came home an hour later, arms full of shopping bags. She looked surprised to find me on the couch. Dan, I didn't expect you home until later tonight. She set the bags down, and I glimpsed expensive clothing peeking out from the tissue paper. How are you feeling? Like I got hit by a truck, I replied flatly. Where were you? Just running errands. I needed to pick up a few things. She gestured vaguely toward the bags. Do you need anything? Are you hungry? I watched her move around the kitchen, all nervous energy and forced cheerfulness. This wasn't the woman I had married. The Candace I knew had been warm, genuine, and present. This woman felt like a stranger wearing her face. We need to talk, I said. Her hand froze on the refrigerator door. About what? About Cameron Blake. The color drained from her face, but she quickly regained her composure. What about him? He helped save your life, Dan. How do you really know him, Candace? I kept my voice calm and even. Don't feed me that Good Samaritan story. I want the truth. She turned to face me fully, and I saw something flicker in her eyes. Calculation. She was weighing her options, deciding which lie to give me. He's a business consultant. I met him at a networking event 6 months ago. What kind of consulting? Corporate restructuring, mergers and acquisitions, those kinds of things. She crossed her arms defensively. Why are you interrogating me? Because I saw you with him, Candace, at the Riverside Hotel 3 weeks ago. Her face turned pale before flushing bright red. You were following me? I was driving past. Your car was there. Then I saw you walk out with him. I leaned forward despite the pain in my ribs. So, let's try this again. How do you really know Cameron Blake? It was a business meeting, she said, but her voice wavered, lacking conviction. We were discussing investment opportunities at a hotel at night. It was convenient. Dan, you're reading way too much into this. I pulled out my phone, opened the unsent text message, and showed it to her. Why was I about to confront you about him the night of my accident? Candace stared at the screen, and for a moment, I thought she might break, might finally tell me the truth. Instead, she straightened her shoulders and looked me dead in the eye. I don't know what you want me to say. You've been paranoid for months, seeing problems where there aren't any. Maybe the accident messed with your head more than the doctors thought. It was a masterful deflection. Turn it around. Make me the problem. Make me doubt my own perceptions. In the past, it might have worked. Not anymore. Get out, I said quietly. What? I said get out. Go to your sister's. Go to a hotel. I don't care. But I want you out of this house until I figure out what's really going on. You can't kick me out of my own home. Watch me, I said, ignoring the pain in my body as I stood up. You've got 30 minutes to pack a bag. Then I'm calling the police and telling them you're trespassing. Dan, you're being ridiculous. 29 minutes. I replied, my voice as hard as granite. She stared at me as though I had grown a second head. Then, without another word, she grabbed her purse and stormed upstairs. I heard drawers slamming, closet doors banging. 15 minutes later, she came down with a suitcase, her face a mask of cold fury. You're going to regret this, she said as she stood by the door. Maybe, I replied, but at least I'll regret it with a clear conscience. The door slammed behind her, and I sank back onto the couch, my entire body trembling. It was done. The first move had been made. Now, I needed to figure out my next move before she and Cameron made theirs. The kids came home to find me alone on the couch, an ice pack pressed against my ribs. Amelia dropped her backpack and rushed to me, her face crumpling with concern. Dad, where's Mom? She asked. She's staying with Aunt Linda for a few days, I said, smoothing her hair back. We both need some space to think. Mateo stood in the doorway, his jaw tight. He was 17, old enough to understand the situation. You two fighting? Something like that, buddy. Come sit down. We need to talk. I had rehearsed this conversation in my head a dozen times, trying to figure out how much to tell them. Too much would shatter their image of their mother. Too little would leave them confused and scared. I settled on something in between. Your mom and I are having serious problems, I said carefully. I don't know if we're going to work through them, but whatever happens between us, it doesn't change how much we both love you too. Is it because of that Cameron guy? Mateo asked bluntly. My stomach dropped. You know about Cameron? Mom's been talking to him on the phone a lot. Like, all the time. She thinks I don't notice, but I do. His face hardened. Is she cheating on you? I looked at my son, seeing the anger and hurt fighting for control in his expression. He deserved the truth, or at least part of it. I think so. Yes. But I'm still figuring out exactly what's going on, I replied. Amelia started crying softly. I pulled her close, feeling my heart break for the 100th time that week. I hate her, Mateo said, his voice sharp with teenage fury. No, you don't. She's still your mother. Whatever mistake she's made, that doesn't change, I said, meeting his eyes. But I need you to be strong right now, for your sister and for me. Can you do that? He nodded stiffly, then grabbed his backpack and headed upstairs. Amelia stayed curled against me until she finally fell asleep. Exhausted from crying, I carried her up to her room, tucked her in, then returned to the living room where Tyler was waiting. That went about as well as could be expected, Tyler said quietly. Yeah, I muttered, dropping back onto the couch, suddenly feeling drained. What did you find? Tyler opened his laptop. Cameron Blake, 55 years old, originally from Chicago, runs a consulting firm called Blake Strategic Solutions. Specializes in what he calls marital asset optimization, which basically means he helps people screw over their spouses during divorce proceedings, sets up shell companies, hides assets, and creates paper trails to make everything look legitimate. Tyler scrolled through more information. He's been sued 4 times. All cases settled out of court. The guy's a professional homewrecker. My hands clenched into fists. How long has Candace been working with him? Based on his retainer agreements, he requires a minimum 6-month engagement. So she probably hired him around the time you saw them at the hotel. They've been planning this for at least 3 weeks, probably longer. And the accident? I asked. Tyler's expression darkened. I talked to a buddy who works in accident reconstruction. He pulled the police report. The other vehicle left paint transfer on your truck. Black paint, consistent with a late model SUV. I felt the room spin. He ran me off the road. Looks that way. Can't prove it yet, but we're working on it. The next morning, I forced myself to go into the office. Reynolds Medical Solutions occupied a modern building on the outskirts of Phoenix, employing 63 people who depended on me to keep the company running. I'd built this from the ground up, and I'd be damned if Candace and Cameron were going to take it from me. My operations manager, Sarah Chun, took one look at me and frowned. Boss, you should be home recovering. I'm fine. I lied, easing into my desk chair. What's happened while I was out? Nothing major. The Austin contract went through. We've got 2 new clients starting next month, she replied, then hesitated. Your wife called yesterday. She asked about the company's financial statements. My blood ran cold. What did you tell her? That she'd need to request them through you or our accountant. She didn't seem happy about that, Sarah said, her expression sharpening. Is everything okay, Dan? I made a decision. Sarah had been with me for 12 years. She was trustworthy, competent, and fiercely loyal to the company. Close the door, I said. She did, then sat across from me, concern etched on her face. Candace and I are separating, I said bluntly. She's been having an affair with a man who specializes in destroying businesses during divorces. I need you to do something for me, and I need you to keep it completely confidential. Anything. Freeze all discretionary spending. No new contracts over $10,000 without my explicit written approval. And I need you to work with our accountant to move our operating funds into a separate account that only I can access. Sarah's eyes widened. You think she'll try to sabotage the business? I think she'll try to take everything I've built, and I'm not going to let that happen. Over the next 3 hours, Sarah and I worked methodically to protect the company. We changed passwords, updated signature authorities, and created a paper trail that would make it nearly impossible for Candace to access anything without going through multiple layers of approval. By noon, my phone rang. Candace's number flashed on the screen. I let it go to voicemail. She called 3 more times, each message angrier than the last. Finally, she sent a text. We need to talk about the business accounts. Call me. I texted back. Talk to my lawyer. Her response came immediately. You're making a huge mistake. I stared at those words, feeling nothing but cold determination. She was right about one thing. Someone was making a huge mistake. But it wasn't me. Tyler showed up at my office that afternoon with more information. Found something interesting, he said, spreading photos across my desk. Cameron Blake at the Riverside Hotel with Candace. Multiple dates over the past 2 months. How'd you get these? I asked, stunned. Had a friend pull the hotel security footage, Tyler said, pointing to one image. This is from 2 days before your accident. They're looking at documents. Can't see what they are, but Candace looks pretty intent. I studied the photos, my stomach rising in my throat. My wife and her boyfriend planning my destruction in a hotel room while I'm working my ass off to provide for our family. There's more, Tyler said grimly. Cameron's got a history. 3 previous clients, all men who ended up losing their businesses during divorces. 2 of them filed police reports claiming their accidents weren't accidents. Nothing was ever proven, but the pattern's there. He's done this before. The realization settled over me like a weight, multiple times, and he's never been caught. I leaned back in my chair, my mind racing. Cameron Blake thought he was untouchable. He thought he could destroy another man's life and walk away unscathed. But he made one critical mistake. He underestimated me. Give me everything you can on his previous cases, I said. Names, dates, court records. If there's a pattern, we're going to expose it. And then we're going to make sure he never does this to anyone else. Candace filed for emergency custody 3 days after I kicked her out. The petition claimed I was mentally unstable, that my injuries had affected my judgment, and that I was putting the children at risk. It was a calculated move designed to hurt me where I was most vulnerable. Tyler drove me to the emergency hearing. My lawyer, Patricia Bowman, met us outside the courthouse. She was in her 50s, sharp as a tack with a reputation for eating opposing counsel alive. They're going to claim you're unfit, Patricia said as we walked in. Post-traumatic stress from the accident. Paranoid delusions about your wife. Standard playbook for this kind of thing. Can they win? Not if I have anything to say about it, she replied, smiling grimly. I've got the hotel photos, Cameron's background, and statements from both kids about their mother's behavior. Judge Hamilton doesn't suffer fools. And Candace's lawyer is about to look like the biggest fool in Arizona. The hearing was brutal. Candace's attorney, a slick younger guy named Preston, painted me as an unstable man who had thrown his wife out in a fit of rage. He emphasized my head injury and suggested I needed a psychiatric evaluation before being around the children unsupervised. Then Patricia stood up. Your Honor, may I present Exhibit A? She projected the hotel security photos onto the courtroom screen. Mrs. Reynolds with Cameron Blake, a consultant who specializes in destroying marriages for profit. Multiple meetings over 2 months. Candace's face went pale. Preston objected, but Patricia steamrolled right over him. Exhibit B, she continued. Mr. Blake's criminal history of lawsuits, all settled out of court. 3 previous clients whose husbands suffered convenient accidents during divorce proceedings. She turned to Candace. Mrs. Reynolds, when exactly did you hire Mr. Blake? I don't have to answer that, Candace stammered. Actually, you do, Judge Hamilton said, his expression stern. This is a custody hearing. The children's welfare is at stake. Answer the question. Candace looked at Preston, who gave a tiny shake of his head. 5 months ago, she finally admitted. 5 months, Patricia repeated. And Mr. Reynolds' accident occurred 3 weeks ago. Interesting timing. The hearing ended with Judge Hamilton denying Candace's petition. Temporary custody remained with me, pending a full investigation. As we left the courthouse, Candace grabbed my arm. This isn't over, Dan, she hissed. You're going to lose everything. I pulled free. The only thing I've lost is my illusions about who you really are. That night, Mateo asked to talk. We sat on the back patio, the desert air cooling as the sun set. I heard what happened in court today, he said quietly. Mom really hired that guy to go after you. Yeah, she did. I don't want to see her anymore. His voice was hard, older than his 17 years. What she did to you. To our family. I can't forgive that. I put my hand on his shoulder. You don't have to decide that right now. She's still your mother, despite everything. She stopped being my mother when she decided to destroy my father. He looked at me, eyes blazing with teenage conviction. I'm on your side, Dad. Whatever happens, I'm with you. The break came from an unlikely source. A woman named Jennifer Hayes called my office a week after the hearing. Sarah transferred her to me, noting that she seemed desperate to speak with me personally. "Mr. Reynolds, you don't know me," Jennifer said, her voice shaking slightly. "But I know Cameron Blake. He did to my ex-husband what he's trying to do to you." I sat up straighter. "I'm listening. 5 years ago, Cameron helped me divorce my husband. Told me he could make sure I got everything. The business, the house, the retirement accounts." She paused. "My husband ended up in a motorcycle accident 2 weeks before the final hearing. He survived, but barely. Cameron was the first person at the scene. My blood ran cold." "Did you know Cameron caused the accident?" I suspected it, but I had been too consumed by my anger to question it. By the time I realized what kind of man he was, the divorce was final. My ex-husband lost everything, including his relationship with our daughter. Jennifer's voice broke. "I've regretted it every day since." "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I saw the news about your custody hearing. I recognized the pattern, and I can't stay silent anymore." She took a deep breath. "I have recordings, Mr. Reynolds," she said. "Conversations with Cameron where he talked about his methods. I kept them as insurance in case he ever turned on me. I want to give them to you." The next morning, we met at a coffee shop. Jennifer was petite, in her mid-40s, with a haunted look on her face, like someone carrying a heavy weight of guilt. She handed me a thumb drive. "Everything's on here," she said. Him discussing how to stage accidents, manipulate court proceedings, and hide assets. It's all there. Tears filled her eyes. "I can't undo what I did to my ex-husband, but maybe I can help you." I squeezed her hand. "Thank you. This takes courage." "It's not courage," she replied, standing to leave. "It's penance." She turned back to face me. "Mr. Reynolds, don't let them break you. Men like Cameron count on their victims giving up. Don't give up." Tyler and I reviewed the recordings that afternoon. Cameron's voice was cold and calculating as he laid out his entire operation. How he targeted vulnerable women and failing marriages, convinced them their husbands were the enemy, and orchestrated accidents when direct confrontation seemed likely. "This is gold," Tyler said. "With this and the hotel photos, we can destroy him. We just need to be careful." I replied, "If Cameron realizes we have this, he'll disappear. Then we move fast. Get it to your lawyer, to the police, to anyone who will listen." That evening, I made copies of everything. I sent one to Patricia, one to a detective friend, and one to a local investigative journalist. By morning, Cameron Blake's world would start crumbling. But first, I had one more call to make. "Candace," I said when she answered. "We need to talk face to face." She was silent for a moment. "Why?" "Because I'm giving you one chance to do the right thing. One chance to walk away from Cameron before everything collapses. After tonight, that option disappears." "I'm not afraid of you, Dan. You should be afraid of the truth. It has a way of destroying everything in its path." We agreed to meet at a neutral location, a park near our old neighborhood. I brought Tyler as backup, and Candace came alone. She looked different than she had just weeks ago, thinner, with dark circles under her eyes, none of her usual polish. "What do you want?" she asked, arms crossed defensively. I handed her a tablet with the recordings queued up. "Listen to this. All of it. Then tell me if you still want to stand by Cameron Blake." Candace listened to the recordings in silence, her face growing paler with each minute. When Cameron's voice described staging accidents, manipulating court proceedings, and destroying families for profit, she closed her eyes. "He told me it was all legitimate," she finally said, her voice hollow. "That we were just protecting my interests in case of divorce." "Did you really believe that?" I asked. "Or did you just not want to know the truth?" She looked at me then, really looked at me, and I saw something I hadn't seen in months. Genuine emotion. Regret, maybe, or just fear of what was coming. "What happens now?" she asked quietly. "Now you have a choice," I replied, taking the tablet back. "You can keep standing by Cameron, keep lying, and watch everything collapse around you. Or you can tell the truth. Cooperate with the investigation. Testify about what he told you, what he planned. He'll destroy me if I turn on him. He's already destroyed you, Candace. You just haven't realized it yet." I stood up. "The police already have these recordings. They're coming for Cameron, probably within 48 hours. The question is whether you're going down with him or whether you're going to save yourself and think about our children for once." Tyler, who had been standing at a distance, approached and handed Candace a business card. "That's Detective Morrison. He's handling the investigation into your husband's accident. Call him before Cameron lawyers up and pins everything on you." Candace stared at the card, her hands trembling. "I never wanted anyone to get hurt. I just wanted out." "Then you should have asked for a divorce," I said. "Instead, you hired a criminal and nearly got me killed." She started crying then, real tears that smeared her makeup. "I'm sorry, Dan. God, I'm so sorry. Sorry doesn't fix this, but the truth might." I turned to leave, then stopped. The kids deserve better than what you've become. If you have any love left for them, do the right thing. 2 days later, Cameron Blake was arrested at his office. The charges included conspiracy to commit murder, fraud, and racketeering. Jennifer's recordings, combined with Candace's testimony, built an airtight case. Candace had called Detective Morrison the night of our meeting, spent 6 hours giving a statement, and agreed to cooperate fully. The betrayal cut deep, Cameron's lawyer argued, but the evidence is overwhelming. 3 previous cases with similar patterns, financial records showing payments to associates who staged the accidents, and Candace's testimony about what Cameron had told her about removing obstacles. Mateo watched the news coverage with grim satisfaction. "Good. I hope he rots in prison." Amelia was quieter, processing everything in her own way. She'd asked to see Candace once, a supervised visit where her mother had apologized and tried to explain. Amelia had listened, then simply said, "You hurt Dad. You hurt all of us. I don't know if I can forgive that." 18 months later, I stood in the empty warehouse that would become Reynolds Medical Solutions' new distribution center. The company had grown 30% since the divorce, landing contracts with 2 major hospital networks. Turns out, nearly dying and publicly fighting off a conspiracy makes for good press. The divorce had been finalized 8 months ago. Candace received a small settlement and supervised visitation with the kids. Cameron Blake was serving 27 years in federal prison, and 3 of his previous victims had filed civil suits. Jennifer Hayes had become an unlikely friend, helping other survivors of similar schemes find their voices. Mateo had just finished his first semester at Arizona State, studying business. He called every Sunday, and we'd started rebuilding the relationship that had been strained by years of my workaholism. Amelia was thriving in high school, playing soccer and acting in the drama club. She still had therapy once a week, working through the trauma of watching her family implode. Tyler had moved back to Phoenix, becoming Reynolds Medical's chief operating officer. He stood beside me now, reviewing the warehouse plans. "You did good, Dan," he said. "Most guys wouldn't have survived what you went through." "Didn't have a choice," I replied. "Had 2 kids counting on me. That's what made the difference. You fought for something bigger than yourself." My phone buzzed. A text from Amelia. "Dad, can we do movie night tonight? Mateo's coming home for the weekend." I smiled, typing back, "Absolutely. Your pick." Tyler noticed my expression. "The kids?" "Yeah, family movie night." I pocketed the phone. You know, for a while there, I thought Cameron and Candace had destroyed everything. But they didn't. They just burned away the parts that weren't real. "Heavy philosophy for a Tuesday," Tyler said. I grinned. "Come on, let's finish this walkthrough. About a date with my kids, and whatever terrible movie Amelia picks." As we walked through the warehouse, I thought about the journey that had brought me here. The accident, the betrayal, the fight for my family and my company. It had nearly broken me, but nearly isn't the same as completely. I'd learned that strength isn't about never falling down. It's about getting back up, even when every bone in your body screams to stay down. It's about protecting what matters, fighting for truth, and refusing to let someone else's darkness extinguish your light. That night, with Mateo and Amelia on either side of me on the couch, arguing good-naturedly about whether we were watching a comedy or an action movie, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Peace. Not the absence of problems, but the presence of purpose. Cameron and Candace had tried to take everything. Instead, they'd given me something unexpected. Clarity about who I was, what I valued, and what kind of man I wanted to be. I chose to be the kind of man who stands up, who fights back, who protects his children and builds something stronger from the ruins. And in the end, that made all the difference.